Welcome to Govs TV and 91.9 Public Affairs. I'm Micah Terrell. Just how close are we to seeing the completion of the brand new art and design building here on Austin Peay's campus? We're going to find out the answers today. Joining me is Barry Jones, the chair of the art department, and Bill Persinger, the director of public relations and marketing here at Austin Peay. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. So let's get started. So the new building is scheduled to open in the spring of this year, and spring has just kind of sprung on us. So how close are we?
Well, they are just about finished. We imagine in a couple of weeks that we'll begin the process of moving faculty offices in, and then they'll slowly finish up the final touches after that. And we think the first classes will be offered in the building probably the second summer session, but then a complete opening for fall.
Right. Now I saw that we already have some artwork hanging in the very cool glassed-in area. Mm-hmm. What are some other things that have already kind of happened?
Well, that's a slower process, but lots of really fine finishes to the building. Lots of maple trim, and the architect's done a wonderful job of really making, particularly the inside, just really sparkle. As far as other artworks that are going to be new as part of it, Professor Cindy Marsh is working on a piece that'll commemorate the new building, and then we're still kind of talking and budgetary stuff to figure out what more could be done, particularly that the green space that used to be the parking lot behind the Traherne building just seems like a perfect place to start adding outdoor sculptures and things like that. But there's no reason to rush those things. We see that as a long-term project.
Because I was going to ask you, how long do you think, because I know it takes some time to obviously design and make those things happen. Yeah. So we probably, maybe a few months, few years down the road. Probably.
I would say years, probably.
Years, probably. Cool.
More than
Great.
months.
Now, what about a name for the building? I know I have a lot of, because I asked my students, it's like, well, do you think we should name it something special? So what about a special name for the building? Have we talked about that yet?
Well, Bill can probably add more to that than I could.
Well, so the plan is that it will be the art and design building, or it is the art and design building. If later on down the road a philanthropy opportunity opens the door to do a different naming, then we would obviously pursue doing that. But it will always be the art and design building, regardless of what the philanthropy name is.
Right. Now, what about, and I understand price-wise, it was $21.3 million. I remember when we had the groundbreaking, which doesn't seem that long ago, that hot September day where we had, the shovels and everything out. So 21.3 was where we are. Is that kind of where we are still, or how are things doing with the budget?
Yeah, it still remained in budget. That's the overall project cost. The construction of the building was about $18 million, and so you add equipment, furnishings, all those components in it, and you get up to about 21.3 million. And so that's stayed on budget. So
that's great. And I understand Austin Peay was what 25% was the match for that, correct? So
I don't know what our match was.
That was just, I remember from a news release that was early on, right after the groundbreaking came out. Yeah. So that's probably about the same then. Probably.
Generally speaking, I think that is the process, though, is that we have to come up with a certain amount, and the state provides the rest. So it's a.
So we've gone through a lot in kind of weather and other things that, as any big project is, you always have things happen and everything. So I understand recently we had the gas rupture nearby Traherne, and then we've had the weather has been kind of bizarre this past winter. So how has that impacted the project, if at all?
Well, I think everything is basically still on target. Weather hasn't really been an issue. The only, and I wouldn't even really, I'm hesitant to call them delays, but at the beginning of the project there were some issues with the
foundation.
It was the soil soil conditions basically. As they began construction, they realized they had to redesign basically the pilings for the building, and so that involved going back to the architectural efforts in redesigning that foundation. So that was a slight delay, but overall it didn't really throw the whole project off track that I'm aware of. And so the gas rupture was, I don't know how, I think somebody hit it when they were digging. I don't know exactly how it happened, but that didn't really disrupt construction. Actually, the result of that was really that we had evacuate a few buildings that day, but it was resolved fairly quickly,
Right.
considering what happened. And so it was really just a safety issue for students, faculty, and staff that were in that general vicinity, that we had to get them out of there temporarily
Sure.
and make sure everything was secured.
Yeah, and safety is of utmost thought here, and with the gas line eruption, of course, back to the actual soil and the structure kind of redoing, if you will, because I mean, we live here in Tennessee, and that kind of geography that we have, you know, we have sinkholes on campus.
Yes.
We've had those, you know, before, so that's good that, you know, safety is always
Yeah.
top of mind.
Yeah, in fact, every project has a basically what I call a sinkhole factor into it, and in that they allocate a budget in case they do have to remediate sinkholes. And we didn't have a sinkhole remediation here, but it does have to do with that the topography and the limestone base we have. Basically, I think the main issue, there was a lot of fragmented rock underneath, and when they injected the concrete to make the foundation, it kind of absorbed too much of the concrete, so that's what they had to do to reconfigure that design. So.
Right. Now, when we talked about, Barry, this one's for you, when we talked about, you know, and this was right after the groundbreaking, how important this project was to the art department. I mean, because Traherne, that was the home for the art department for a really, really long time. And this, you mentioned how this project was needed urgently back when, you know, both you and I were in art class there. So how will this space have enough room for growth? Because obviously the program's growing.
It is growing, and Traherne's a fine building. It's just, it was a fine building for a Department of Art and Design that was a quarter of the size that we are now. So we were bursting at the seams. And so what this new building gives us is, well, a premier space. There's not going to be a space like it on campus, and probably not in another institution in our area. So it's going to make us a destination for art and design students across the region, just because we have these stellar facilities. To give you a sense, Traherne, when it was built on in the early 70s with this open classroom concept, which led to where we couldn't have some classes happening at the same time. And so one of the things that, as chair, it's been really great is as I schedule the fall classes, I can offer printmaking and painting at the same time, you know, which I couldn't do because they shared an open space. So that's going to be nice. But the facilities that, the new building, one of the things that's the most exciting to me is that the air ventilation, the electrical delivery is going to make it an incredibly safe space. So it's that was one of the top priorities, was to make it as safe for our students as possible. So there's that, but then there's also just bigger studios that are designed for the function, so they just work really well, and they just look amazing. I can't wait for everybody to get to see it. I was in yesterday, you know, just beautiful polished concrete floors, open industrial ceilings, and just big, beautiful windows. It's a space that's designed for all of the different things that we do now, and so everything has a dedicated space, and that's hugely important.
Definitely, and do you hope to see more growth, I guess, in the offerings that you can have because of this as well?
Yeah, like one of the things that this the new building provides is we're going to have a dedicated studio for our animation program. So currently in Traherne, graphic design, digital media, digital photography, and animation all share a space. And in the new building, each one gets its own space. So as we see animation growing, which certainly is a popular new option for students, they needed their own space because we have to offer more and more classes. And so we're very excited about that. There'll be green screen shooting, there'll be a stop motion station, some virtual reality equipment, and all of these things that are really dedicated to animation that we just didn't have room for in Traherne. So it's going to allow for the expansion of those types of programs and for more students to take those courses.
And hopefully this will be another tool in recruiting as well, getting more people interested in the programs that you
Oh,
have to
certainly,
offer.
yes. I think recruiting, when students visit campus, recruiting is going to take care of itself. They're going to want to study in that building.
Definitely, that's awesome. Now, how will this new building help give, I guess, an edge to? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I mean, there are things that it's going to have that, like you mentioned before, that no other studio art building has in the region?
Well, just an example, there's going to be a space that we're calling the Living Gallery. It's a pretty good sized space in the new building that's going to be, our arts and design students can apply with a special project and they get personal, private, semi-private studio space for their project. And this is an opportunity that undergraduate programs almost never have. And so it kind of shows, physically makes our commitment to the research and work of our students. It's there, it shows how important it is. We're not going to offer any classes. It's going to be for students to conduct their own creative research. And that's usually, at other schools, that's kind of something that's reserved for graduate students. So it's a big deal that undergraduate students are getting that here.
Definitely. And what about visiting artists too? Would that be, this will give more space for them as well?
One of the, another nice feature of the building is a large lecture and performance hall. And so we are always struggling to find a good space for our visiting speakers. And this is a gorgeous premier presentation space for our guest artists. And it'll also be a place for students in the Department of Music to have their like senior recitals and things like that. So it's going to be, that's going to be really important to us. It is a gorgeous space.
It is definitely, really. Now, how will it fit in? Because I understand that this new building was a big footprint. It's a lot of space, a lot of things going on there. And when this all went down, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh my goodness, this parking! What are we going to do?" And then we got the addition of the Jenkins and Wynn property, and that added another 10 acres, some more spaces and things. So how did those, I guess, fit together? Will there be enough room for everything that you need in the new space? Will you need to use some of the buildings there on the outlying Jenkins and Wynn property for any art?
Well, one of the things, art and design, we always want more space.
Always.
as does everybody.
Everybody, yes.
But there's no immediate needs. I mean,
Right now.
we're for the first time in my 12 years here on the faculty, we're going to have everything we need, and there won't be any crowding or anything like that. But if Dr. White would like to give us one of the Jenkins Wynn spaces, we'll take it. We can always come up with stuff, but we're perfectly happy. We're going to be set and in good shape with this building.
And what about art installations in other buildings? I know like Harnett has some, and then there's some in other places. Will they still stay there? Will you move those pieces into the art and design building?
In some places they'll stay. Michael Dickens, our gallery director and the director of our collections, is making a strong effort to get our collection out and about on the campus. One of the things we will do is the Mabel Larson Gallery. We're going to move some of that work into the new building. It gives us a place for our students to more closely study the collection and for us to better manage it. But other than that, no, we're hoping to actually get more of our work out across campus. We have a wonderful art collection, several thousand pieces, and we don't want to keep it in storage.
No, right. I was going to ask you how much is still that we haven't seen.
75% of it's still in storage. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Now, what other thoughts do you have about this art building and how it's going to be a great addition to campus? I didn't know if you guys wanted to add that one, address that.
Well, so you touched on recruiting. One of the facts we have is that when we bring a student on campus for a tour of any kind, they are highly likely to go ahead and enroll because I think a lot of people don't realize what a phenomenally beautiful campus we have to begin with, and then if they're an art major specifically, you have this just phenomenal new facility that is just makes it all that much more attractive. But also we have a phenomenal faculty in there as well. I actually went through the program. It's been a long time ago, a different set of faculty, but that department and being an art major is the best experience you could have on this campus, in my opinion, because we've got just phenomenal people with tremendous talent, and so you'll see that as a recruit, and so it is something to see.
It is, definitely. So when can people, the general public, when can we expect to, maybe get a peek at what's going on? Is there going to be like a soft opening, grand opening? What kind of things can we look forward to?
Yeah, so the soft opening is basically when they'll be able to turn over the building to us for faculty to move in mainly and start having classes. That's still being determined, but should be within the next few weeks, I would say. There is a large grand opening being planned for the fall. But we haven't set dates, and there's a lot of planning going around.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot to do still. As Barry mentioned, there's
Yeah,
still
there is
a
a
lot
lot to
of
do.
fine points and things to do. Great. Right, gentlemen, any other thoughts you wanted to share about the art building?
Well, one of the things that I'm constantly pleased with is that this was a really big commitment by the state of Tennessee and Austin Peay State University to dedicate the amount of money that we're talking about, and it makes me feel really proud that the value of art and design is so important to us. It's because these are dedicated spaces, very specific. You can't teach anything other but painting in the painting studio, and so this is a huge commitment and a huge, I feel like a statement of support from the university and from the state, and it kind of shows the role that the arts play in general on our campus and the importance of the Center of Excellence for the Creative Arts, and so yeah, it just feels really good that this kind of opportunity was provided to us.
Well, and art is a big deal. I think a lot of people don't quite realize how important it is. And we've talked in the past about how it helps build critical thinking beyond, people just think, oh, that's a nice, photograph or that's a nice painting, but it builds beyond that, right?
Yes. We think of the things that we teach in art and design as applicable to any field. If we have a student who leaves with a degree in art or having taken art classes that goes on to be, say, a lawyer, that's success. Those skills can be the critical thinking skills, the learning to experiment and take a chance. Those are things that can be applied to any aspect of someone's life. And so we think, I obviously think art's very important.
Of course.
Yeah.
But definitely our proximity to Nashville. When you think about Nashville, is also a burgeoning place where art is definitely a big deal there as well. So.
You're in a region that has a lot of potential here. A lot of designers. We've had a lot of students go to work for Gaylord Opryland as designers or artists or stage builders. Well, and that would be more in theater, but there is a lot of application. A lot of people that don't know about art majors and programs, kind of wonder what you would do with the degree, and there are a lot of career opportunities out there, and they range from those kinds that I just described to art directors, creative directors, ad executives, just to name a few. Then there's also teaching. I mean, there's opportunities for not only K through 12, but to move on and maybe pursue an MFA down the road, Master of Fine Arts, and go into higher ed teaching. So it really opens up a lot of doors.
Definitely a lot of avenues for sure. Yeah. Now speaking of Traherne too, when can we expect? Because I know that's of course theater and dance, but still a related art-based program too. When can we expect those renovations to be complete?
Well, the renovations of Traherne were completed over the summer, and so the poor theater and dance department is waiting for us to get out of their way.
They're like, when?
So as soon as we're out of some of our studios, they'll move into them and give them the space that they need for their programs. So they're not getting the new building, but they're getting a considerable amount of space that has been renovated. So it was a rough summer. The building was closed, and so everybody was homeless for a little while. But they hit that deadline. We were ready for fall classes, and now theater and dance just wants us to move.
Yeah, you're like, it's been nice.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Great. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping by and giving us a good update. And we're really looking forward to getting a look inside in the next few months and checking it out. So thank you.
Thank you,
Bill
Micah.
Persinger and Barry Jones.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Micah Terrell with Govs TV and 91.9 Public Affairs.